Welcome to the channel, and in this video, I wanted to talk about 1989's Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. I'd never heard of it until Arrow Video released it on Blu-ray back in 2021, and I wound up really enjoying this movie, and I've rewatched it a few times every year since. It's a fairly standard slasher film, but with 1980s mall culture, soap opera level melodrama, some karate, and Pauly Shore.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
The story was first developed by Scott Schneid and Fred Ulrich, and it was just simply titled The Mall. Their idea was simple. What would be a cool place for a horror movie to take place at? Scott thought, well, horror movies are mainly seen by teens, and where do teens mainly hang out? And the mall was the answer. Malls were all the rage back then because capitalism, baby! Scott then teamed up with Tony Michelman to write the script, and the name was then changed to Phantom of the Mall. They wound up selling it to Chuck Fries, who had them do a lot of revisions due to the fact he was a cheap producer. He would later drop them from the film and hire Robert King to basically rewrite the whole script, and added the subtitle Eric's Revenge. The original writers never even knew that a director was hired and that production of the film had started. Richard Freeman directed the movie, and he had some horror credits to his name, with directing episodes of Tales from the Dark Side and the Friday the 13th TV series. They shot most of the movie at Sherman Oaks Galleria in LA, and it's not the only film to be shot there. 2 Schwarzenegger movies were filmed there with Commando and T2, along with the coming-of-age classic Fast Times at Ridgemont High was shot there. Also, another one of my favorite horror movies was filmed there, 1986's Chopping Mall. A video on that movie will be coming soon.
Where shopping costs you an arm and a leg.
The movie stars Derek Rydell as Eric, aka the Phantom, but I didn't realize after a few watches that his full name is actually Eric Matthews. I'm a 90s kid, so hearing that name, I can't help but think of Boy Meets World.
Mr. Feeney! Dude!
Also, Donnie Wahlberg's character in the Saw movies was also named Eric Matthews. Some other notable actors in the movie are Ken Foree. He doesn't have a real noteworthy role, and I always forget that he's in this. I also didn't realize this is another horror movie he was in that mainly takes place at a mall, since he was in the original Dawn of the Dead. And also, to my surprise, director Richard Freeman had no idea who Ken was when he cast him in this. Another horror alumni that's in this is Tom Fridley. He was in Friday the 13th Part 6, my second favorite Friday the 13th movie. I also learned on the special features on the Blu-ray that he's the nephew of John Travolta. One of the main villains in the movie is played by Gregory Scott Cummins, and I'm a huge It's Always Sunny fan, and he's great in that show as Mac's dad. He's very good at playing a crazed person up to no good. Jonathan Goldsman plays Posner, the shady businessman running the mall. I looked up info on him because he looked familiar, and he was the most interesting man from those Dos Equis beer commercials from 10-15 years ago.
Stay thirsty, my friends.
Pauly Shore plays Buzz, the comedic relief in the movie. He was actually cast in the film after the director saw him perform at the Comedy Store in LA. Unfortunately for this movie, Pauly's career didn't take off until a couple years after this was released. The big star the production got for this movie was Morgan Fairchild. She's been in a ton of stuff, and I can't remember what exactly I knew her from, but she was brought in to help sell the movie, and I like the twist with her character, even though you can see it coming from a mile away. The story is about Eric, who has been pronounced dead after he and his family have their house burned down because they refuse to relocate since their house is in the way of a new mall that's being built. And then cut to a year later, Eric's girlfriend Melody is now working at the mall, along with a few of her friends. She's still broken up over Eric's death until she comes across a hunky reporter named Pete. Pete is initially interested in her so he can uncover more about the fire that killed Eric, but romance then starts to ensue. Meanwhile, the Phantom, aka Eric, is living in an underground lair and is slowly getting revenge on Posner, the owner of the mall, by taking out his security guards and maintenance crew. Luckily, the mall was built with massive air ducts for Eric to traverse. One of the best kills is when Eric takes out the pervy security guard who we see gawking at women through a security camera feed, where the camera is actually just pointed straight at a women's changing room. I've worked a few retail jobs, and we never had a camera pointed at the fitting rooms. This was probably just a not-so-clever way to get more TNA in the movie. The pervy security guard ends up getting pinned to a circuit breaker by a forklift driven by Eric, and then he gets electrocuted and his eyes pop out of his skull. In between killing, we see Eric getting his pump on with some free weights, and he has a lat pull down. He also practices karate, and actor Derek Rydell did prepare for the role by taking martial arts classes. He's also an excellent shot with a crossbow when he sees Melody being mugged outside the mall. The mugger turns out to be the piano player in the mall. His death is pretty funny because Eric places a cobra inside a pipe, and the cobra slithers up into the toilet where the piano player happens to be taking a shit, and that's how he dies. Eric is also a big fan of Stan Bush, and I never really knew of Stan Bush until I watched the animated Transformers movie from the 80s. His song Heart of Darkness plays a lot throughout the movie. This movie also gets a little political with a message on consumerism. Buzz shows Hunky Eric that underneath the music that plays on the mall's loudspeakers, there's a voice encouraging customers to shop more. For a schlocky movie like this to include subliminal messaging is a little unexpected, and I like that it did that. Hunky Eric also discovers in that scene that the sketchy mall security guard looks like the man Melody described as the man that set the fire that killed Eric and his parents. The sketchy man is Gregory Scott Cummins, who's in cahoots with Posner, the mall owner. Posner also has a mischievous son that's going around harassing people until Eric lassos him and he gets his neck snapped or he's choked out by the escalator. Either way, it's another invented kill in the movie. There's also a pretty good car chase with Gregory Scott Cummins, who's in hot pursuit of Melody and Peter. And dude, that stuntman gets absolutely slammed by that car. Shout out to the stuntman who did that because that looked pretty fucking brutal. Eric ends up saving Melody and gets to show off his sweet karate skills, and he beheads the dude in a trash compactor. The Melody and Eric reunion doesn't go all that well. She rejects him for her new hunky boyfriend after Eric shows off his horrific burned face. He also reveals he's going to blow up the mall with a bomb that he made, and that he wants him and Melody to live happily together in his Ninja Turtle underground lair. Peter comes to her aid, but not before he takes a roundhouse kick that would make Swayze proud. Peter and Melody escape and run into the mayor, who reveals that she's actually a stockholder in the mall and was partly responsible for the attempted death of Eric. But then Eric pops out of nowhere and throws her out of a window and she gets impaled. He then gets one last bit of revenge on Posner by using a flamethrower, but Posner then bumps into some propane tanks, blowing him and Eric up. The bomb then goes off and Eric is presumed dead once again. But luckily Melody has her new hunky boyfriend, and then we get the song Is There a Phantom in the Mall by the Vandals playing over the credits. The movie didn't get a wide theatrical release, and there's no info on how much it made at the box office, but it would find its audience on home video, and that's where it developed its cult following. Arrow Video put out this collector's edition Blu-ray back in 2021, and this edition sold out very quickly. I jumped on it when I saw Grindhouse Video's live stream, and the owner said buy it now because it's going to be sold out soon. I'm sure glad I did because this edition is pretty expensive on the secondary market now, but there is a standard release and that's widely available. The difference between this and the standard edition is that this comes with a second disc that has the TV cut and a fan cut that adds scenes from the TV cut to the theatrical. The opening scene is different, with Eric performing gymnastics in front of Melody, Buzz, and Susie, and then that leads into the scene of the night the fire happened. Everything else is just kind of minor things, like Buzz admitting to Susie that he likes her, but that never really goes anywhere. There's also an odd dance party scene where everyone is dancing in a brightly lit room while the Vandal song plays, and it doesn't match the rhythm the people are dancing to. Also in this edition, there's a double-sided poster with the newly commissioned artwork by Justin Osborne, and on the other side is the terrible theatrical poster. Shout out to Justin Osborne, he killed it with the artwork for this release. A booklet is also included with 2 essays, one by Daniel R. Budnick and the other by Amanda Reyes. They discuss the film along with the mall culture of yesteryear. Also included in it are production notes. This edition also comes with 6 lobby cards. Arrow Video really did a great job with this release, and they are by far my favorite label for physical media. They ain't perfect by any means, they do have their slip-ups, but they put out the best collector-friendly releases consistently each and every year. Both editions of this movie come with a 40-minute retrospective on the film. Both the original screenwriters were interviewed and they talked about the changes that were made and how much they just lament the finished film that we got. They have every right to be a little bitter because they both seem very passionate about the script that they wrote, and I can't imagine seeing something you created that doesn't depict really anything you imagined. Derek Rydell, the Phantom himself, is interviewed, and he mentions that he wanted to be an actor since his uncle was Don Siegel, the director of the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, along with Dirty Harry and Escape from Alcatraz. The only other actor interviewed for this was Gregory Scott Cummins, and he just comes across as a pretty chill dude, and that he had a great time shooting the movie, and he liked his death scene. The other special feature on this edition is with the drummer of the Vandals, Joe Escalante. If you've played the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, you would have heard their song Euro Barge in that game. He talks about how he was the drum tech for one of my favorite punk bands, TSOL, before joining the Vandals, and that this wasn't their first Hollywood gig, as they were featured in 2 Penelope Spears movies with Suburbia and Dudes. He also mentioned that he produced the song, and he kind of jokes how the lyrics aren't so PC friendly now. He was also able to put a down payment on a house thanks to the paycheck he got for this movie, so that's pretty cool. I would highly recommend anyone to pick this up. I don't know if Arrow would be able to put this out in 4K. I think they did the best with the materials that they had to work with, and this Blu-ray totally looks fine to me. Thanks for watching this video on Phantom of the Mall. Let me know if you're a fan of this movie, or maybe I've convinced you to go check it out. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a movie time.
I'll eat my words.